Have you ever sat down with a greasy paper bag from one of your favorite fast food chains, only to wonder if this meal was actually worth it? The fries turn limp before you finish them, the burger tastes more like salt than beef, and that soda feels like watered-down syrup. But what if behind the neon signs and cheap deals, there are a few places that still surprise you, and two that might just redeem the drive-thru altogether? Let's kick things off with the chain that proves not all fried food is worth the grease bath. Long John Silver's. Picture this. You step inside, the smell of fried batter hits you before the door even swings shut, and for a moment, you think you're about to get that golden, seaside-style fish experience. But then reality sets in. Your plate arrives glistening, not in a mouth-watering way, but in the how many napkins will it take to blot this kind of way. The batter is thick, the fish is thin, and by the time you bite in, it feels more like you're chewing through an oil sponge than enjoying seafood. The issue is not just the grease, though there's plenty of that. It is the quality of the seafood itself. Many longtime fans have complained that the fish tastes frozen, bland, and oddly textured, as if the ocean it came from was the back aisle freezer of a grocery store. Even the hush puppies and fries, which should be safe comfort foods, often feel heavy and tired. And if you thought you could balance it out with something lighter, good luck. Vegetables on the menu are rare, and when they appear, they often feel like an afterthought. The prices might make you think you are getting a deal, but here is the trap. By the time you finish a meal, you feel weighed down. It is the kind of food that makes you want to lie down immediately, not in the good, satisfied way, but in the I need to recover from this way. It is no wonder many locations have shut down. The demand simply is not there for fried regret. Can you find something worth eating here? Some die-hard fans will say the crispy crumbs, the little fried bits that fall off in the fryer, are the best part of the meal. But when the highlight is the scraps, you know the main show has lost its magic. Here's a question for you. Have you ever walked out of a fast food spot feeling more regret than satisfaction? Next up, we have the royal disappointment, Burger King. There was a time when this place really did feel like the king of fast food. The flame-grilled Whopper was a classic, the onion rings had their own fan base, and the crown-shaped paper hats made the experience fun. But somewhere along the way, the throne started wobbling. Today, stepping into Burger King can feel more like rolling the dice. Sometimes you get a decent meal, and sometimes you wonder if the cook even looked at what they were serving. The biggest letdown is consistency. A Whopper should be big, bold, and flavorful, but too often it shows up lukewarm with limp lettuce, mushy tomatoes, and cheese that barely melts. The flame-grilled flavor, which once set Burger King apart from McDonald's and Wendy's, is now barely noticeable. Add in the fact that fries often come out soggy instead of crisp, and it is a gamble whether your order feels worth the money. Then there is the endless line of strange menu experiments. Remember the Halloween Whopper with the black bun that turned people's tongues and stomachs green? Or the Satisfries, which promised health but delivered confusion? Instead of focusing on making their core items great, Burger King often leans on gimmicks that create headlines but not loyal fans. Value is another sore spot. Deals come and go, but when a basic meal costs as much as higher quality competitors, it is tough to justify stopping here. Many customers only swing by when coupons arrive in the mail, and that is not a sign of strong brand loyalty. If you are feeling nostalgic, you might still crave a Whopper now and then. It is a recognizable name with decades of history, but for many, Burger King has slipped from being the king to just another court jester in the fast food game. So tell me, do you think Burger King can ever reclaim its crown, or is its reign officially over? Sliding into the list is the sandwich shop that promised eat fresh, but often delivers eat questionable, Subway. Walk into any location and you are greeted with rows of vegetables, meats, and breads that look colorful at first glance. But look closer and you might start to notice the cracks. The bread, for instance, was famously ruled by courts in Ireland as containing so much sugar it could not legally be called bread. That is not exactly the kind of fresh start most people are looking for. The meats often look uniform, processed, and thinly sliced, to the point where you need 3 layers just to taste them. And while Subway markets itself as a healthier alternative to burgers and fries, many of their sandwiches can be just as calorie-heavy and sodium-packed as a Big Mac. Add in the sauces, which many rely on for actual flavor, and suddenly that healthy lunch starts looking like a sneaky fast food trap. Quality control has also been a constant complaint. Depending on the location, your vegetables might be fresh and crisp or wilted and sad. Your sandwich might be packed generously or look like someone rationed every ingredient. And unlike most chains, where the food is cooked in a kitchen, Subway's success depends almost entirely on the person behind the counter. If they care, you get a decent sub. If they do not, you are out of luck. It is not all bad. Many people have fond memories of $5 foot-long deals, even if those days are long gone. And when you hit the right location with a good sandwich artist, you can still walk away with something satisfying. But overall, Subway has lost much of the shine that made it feel like a fresh alternative in the 1990s and early 2000s. The biggest problem? It promised freshness but could not consistently deliver. Question for you. Do you think Subway still deserves its Eat Fresh slogan, or should they finally change it? Coming in hot is the chain that loves to brag. We have the meats, but often forgets to mention what those meats actually taste like. Arby's. Their signature roast beef sandwich looks iconic on the commercials, stacked high and steaming, but in real life, it can feel more like a stack of beige mystery sheets than a hearty meal. Take one bite, and the texture is often rubbery. The flavor oddly salty, but bland at the same time, leaving you wondering what you just ate. The menu tries to stand out by offering curly fries, sliders, and even deli-style sandwiches, but the core problem always comes back to quality. That roast beef, a thing that is supposed to define the chain, rarely tastes like anything freshly sliced. Instead, it often comes across as reheated and mass-produced. Even their attempts to branch into turkey, brisket, or fish often fall flat because the same issues follow. Thin cuts, heavy sauces to cover blandness, and nothing that feels craveable enough to bring you back. Prices also raise eyebrows. When you can get a roast beef sandwich for the same price as a hearty burger or sub from a competitor, you start to ask, why am I here? The curly fries might be the saving grace, but a side dish is not enough to carry a chain. To their credit, Arby's marketing has been clever, leaning into humor and bold slogans. But while the commercials shout confidence, the food whispers disappointment. And no matter how loud the ads are, if the meal does not deliver, people will not return. The truth is, Arby's feels like a chain that never found its true identity. Is it fast food roast beef? Is it deli-style sandwiches? Is it just quirky sides? Until it figures that out, it risks being remembered more for its commercials than its meals. Here is the real question. When was the last time you honestly craved Arby's roast beef? And did it live up to the memory? Sliding into the spotlight, for all the wrong reasons, is the mall food court classic, Sbarro. For many of us, this place was tied to memories of shopping trips in the 90s and early 2000s, when grabbing a greasy slice under the fluorescent lights felt like a small reward for surviving hours at the mall. But nostalgia can only carry you so far. Today, Sbarro's pizza often looks better under the heat lamps than it tastes on the plate. The problem is simple. It is fast, it is convenient, but it is rarely fresh. Most of the pizzas sit pre-made, waiting for customers, which means by the time you get your slice, the cheese is rubbery, the crust is chewy, and the toppings are dry. A real New York slice should be thin, crispy, and foldable. Sbarro's version is more like a soggy breadboard topped with regret. Prices do not help either. A single slice can cost as much as a higher quality pizza from a sit-down restaurant or a local shop. And while you could once justify it as a quick mall snack, with fewer malls thriving today, Sbarro feels like it is clinging to a past that no longer exists. Fans may defend it as a guilty pleasure, and yes, there is something familiar about grabbing a slice with a fountain soda while people watching in the food court. But compared to the wide variety of pizza options now available, Sbarro has lost its edge. At its best, Sbarro is a time capsule of mall culture. At its worst, it is a sad reminder of what happens when convenience takes priority over quality. Here is the real question. When is the last time you had a slice of Sbarro? And was it nostalgia or flavor that kept you there? Coming up next, we have the drive-thru twins that shout about bold flavors, but often deliver bold regrets. Checkers and Rallies. At first glance, these spots have a lot going for them. Seasoned fries that smell amazing, burgers stacked tall, and milkshakes that call out to anyone cruising by. But the cracks show quickly. The food here is notoriously greasy. Not just treat yourself greasy, but the kind where you can see the oil soaking through the paper bag before you make it home. Burgers that look towering in ads often arrive smashed and dripping. Fries, though seasoned, can be limp and oversalted, making it hard to finish more than a few without chugging a drink. And do not even get started on the chicken sandwiches. More breading than chicken and rarely cooked evenly. Another issue? Cleanliness and consistency. Many customers report that locations feel neglected, with sticky counters, slow service, and food quality that swings wildly depending on who is in the kitchen. It is one of those chains where you never quite know what you are going to get. which makes people think twice before pulling into the drive-thru. Still, some fans stick around purely for the fries. They're one of the few menu items that inspire loyalty. But when your side dish is the star and the rest is a disappointment, it is tough to keep up in the competitive fast food world. Checkers and Rallies may win you over late at night when cravings hit hard. But for many, the regret sets in almost as quickly as the grease. Here's a thought. Have you ever ordered Checkers or Rallies fries and wished the rest of the meal lived up to them? Sliding into the list is a chain that inspires strong opinions. White Castle. For some, those little square sliders are a nostalgic treat, tied to road trips, late nights, and cult classic movies. For others, they are nothing more than steamed bread and onion-soaked beef that leaves you wondering why you ordered a dozen of them. The signature slider looks charming. A tiny square patty with 5 little holes pressed through it, steamed over a bed of onions and topped with a pickle. The first bite can feel unique, especially if you are used to traditional burgers. But after 2 or 3, the novelty wears off fast. The texture is soft, almost mushy, and the overpowering onion flavor tends to linger long after the meal is over. Quality control is also a sticking point. Sliders are often served lukewarm with buns that feel damp rather than toasted. And while the idea of getting a crave case of 30 burgers sounds fun, the reality is more often a box of regret and a stomach that wishes you had chosen differently. That said, White Castle has a certain charm. It is one of the oldest fast food chains in America, and its history gives it a cult following. Some people genuinely love the unique flavor profile, and for them, nothing else compares. But for the average diner, it feels more like a novelty than a meal worth repeating. At the end of the day, White Castle sliders are less about quality and more about the story you tell afterward. So be honest. Do you eat White Castle for the taste or just for the tradition?
And finally for this round, we have Church's Chicken, the chain that proves fried chicken is not always a blessing. On paper, it sounds great. Golden fried chicken, flaky biscuits, and sides like mashed potatoes and fried okra. But too often, the execution falls short of the promise. The chicken can be wildly inconsistent, sometimes juicy, sometimes dry, and almost always coated in a batter that is more greasy than crispy. Instead of that satisfying crunch you expect, you are left with a heavy, oily bite that sits in your stomach long after the meal. The seasoning, which should be bold and flavorful, is often bland, making you reach for sauces just to find some taste. Sides do not always rescue the situation either. The biscuits can be hit or miss, sometimes buttery and warm, other times dense and tough. Mashed potatoes with gravy are often watery, and other sides feel like an afterthought. When even the biscuits, a Southern staple, cannot be counted on, it makes the whole experience harder to trust. Value is a factor too. Prices are similar to better-known chicken chains, but the quality does not always match. Why pay the same for less flavor and more grease when you can go somewhere else for consistently good fried chicken? That said, loyal fans exist, especially in regions where Church's has been part of the community for decades. But for most people, it ends up as a chain you try once, then move on from. It is proof that fried chicken might be comfort food, but only when it is done right. Here's the question. When it comes to fried chicken, do you go for tradition, or do you chase the best crunch no matter the chain?
Rolling into the list with a catchphrase everyone remembers is Little Caesars. Hot and ready was once the magic phrase. You walked in, grabbed a $5 pizza, and left without waiting. But here is the problem. Fast and cheap rarely adds up to good. The crust is often described as cardboard-like, more stiff than chewy, and without that satisfying pull you want from real pizza dough. The sauce can be overly sweet, almost like tomato candy, while the cheese sometimes tastes more like plastic than dairy. To make matters worse, many pizzas sit under heat lamps for who knows how long, turning the already low-quality pie into something that feels more like a microwaved leftover than a meal. Sure, the price is unbeatable. For families on a budget, a $5 pizza feeds the kids without breaking the bank. But even then, many parents will admit they only buy it because it is cheap, not because anyone is actually excited about the taste. It is food that fills you up but rarely leaves you satisfied. Some loyal customers defend it for nostalgia, memories of sleepovers, Little League parties, or Friday nights where convenience was king. And yes, the crazy bread still has a fan club. But when it comes to actual pizza, Little Caesars has always felt like the last resort rather than the first choice. At its best, it is fast, cheap, and edible. At its worst, it is the definition of why people say you get what you pay for. So here is the question. Is Little Caesars comfort food from your past or just cardboard in a pizza box today?
Popping up next is the chain that tries to do everything and usually fails. Jack in the Box. Burgers, tacos, breakfast sandwiches, milkshakes, you name it, it is on the menu. But when a place spreads itself that thin, quality tends to slip through the cracks. Take the tacos, for example. They are cheap, greasy, and oddly addictive, but no one would call them good. The shells are soggy, the filling is mysterious, and yet people still order them at 2 in the morning because, well, they are 2 for $1. The burgers? Often dry and bland, slapped together without care. And while the breakfast menu has its fans, inconsistency is the key word here. One day decent, the next day a disaster. Jack in the Box has always leaned into late-night marketing, targeting people who just want something greasy after hours. That works for a certain crowd, but for most diners, it means you expect lower standards from the start. Add in the fact that many locations struggle with cleanliness and speed of service, and it is not hard to see why this chain lands on the avoid side of the list. To its credit, the variety is impressive. You can grab egg rolls, curly fries, and a burger in one order, but variety means nothing if most of it tastes like it came out of a microwave. At the end of the day, Jack in the Box is less about quality food and more about being open when everywhere else is closed. Be honest, do you go to Jack in the Box for the flavor or just because it is there at 2 a.m.? Shifting gears to a positive note, we have Chick-fil-A, a chain that actually earns its spot on the worth it list. When it comes to fast food chicken, this place has built a reputation on consistency, service, and flavor. The chicken sandwiches are simple, but nearly always satisfying. Juicy breast meat, lightly breaded, with just the right amount of seasoning. Add the signature pickles and a toasted bun, and you get a bite that feels balanced rather than overloaded. Unlike many chicken chains, Chick-fil-A manages to keep the chicken moist without drowning it in grease. Service is another reason fans swear by it. Employees are trained to be polite, efficient, and welcoming, which makes a huge difference in fast food, where rushed and unfriendly service is often the norm. The drive-thru system is famously smooth, moving cars quickly, even during peak hours. The sides also deserve a mention. Waffle fries that are usually crisp and golden, fresh salads, and those sauces that people hoard in their glove compartments. Prices are higher than some other chains, but most customers agree the quality justifies the cost. Of course, Chick-fil-A has faced controversy over the years, which complicates things for some diners, but purely from a food and service standpoint, it remains one of the most reliable chains in America. For many, Chick-fil-A is proof that fast food can be done right. So tell me, is Chick-fil-A your go-to chicken sandwich, or do you think another chain does it better? And finally, we have In-N-Out Burger, the other chain that is actually worth the hype. For decades, this West Coast legend has built a cult following, and for good reason. It keeps things simple and it does them well. The menu is short and sweet, burgers, fries, shakes, that is it. But within that simplicity is consistency. The burgers are made from fresh beef, never frozen, and cooked to order. The vegetables are crisp, the buns are soft and toasted, and the cheese melts perfectly every time. Even the secret menu, with its animal-style fries and burgers, has become a cultural icon. Quality control is where In-N-Out really shines. Unlike many chains, it has resisted the urge to expand too fast, keeping its reach limited to areas where it can maintain standards. That is why people often line up for 30 minutes or more without complaint. They know what they are getting will taste exactly like the last time they had it. Prices are surprisingly affordable for the quality, with burgers often cheaper than other fast food spots that cut corners. And unlike the messy, overstuffed burgers at other chains, In-N-Out keeps portions balanced, which makes every bite satisfying rather than overwhelming. It is not fancy, it is not flashy, but In-N-Out proves that sometimes the simplest meals are the best. That is why people travel out of their way just to grab a burger and fries. Here is the question. If you had the choice, would you rather see In-N-Out expand nationwide, or do you think keeping it regional is part of the magic? And that wraps it up. Now, I want to hear from you. Which fast food chain burned you the most, and which one still wins your heart? Drop your picks in the comments, give this video a thumbs up if you had fun, and subscribe to the hidden menu so you never miss the next bite. And remember, the truth is not always on the menu.